All right, g'day IB psychologist. The health belief model, which I always want to call the health beliefs model. But anyway, this is a key topic in IB health psychology, and we're going to use it to try to explain chronic stress, right? This unit is all about stress. So can we use the health belief model? A review where this lesson falls into the unit. We've done the explanations, biocognitive, social, cultural. This is preparing for paper 2. We've looked at prevalence. Now we're getting at determinants. So previously we looked at the dispositional factor of locus of control. There's also a lot of dispositional factors in this unit, like your appraisals or your COMT gene variant, right? Are you a warrior or a warrior? And here we're looking at the health belief model. Okay. All right, so now one of the key things to remember from this unit is that stress actually, it's defined as a health problem, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Stress is actually a good thing, and this is why it's really important to distinguish between acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress has benefits. We need to be stressed. If you see a bear in the woods and you don't get stressed, you're probably going to die because you don't have the adrenaline and the stress to run away. But it's when it becomes chronic and prolonged that it's an issue. And so my goal with this stress unit is to try to teach students the difference between that. Take acute stress, pressure. Pressure makes diamonds. I heard that saying recently and I love it. Pressure makes diamonds. And so take that acute stress that you're experiencing and harness that extra energy and put it into something productive. All right, and so if you have exam stress, use that stress to help you. The adrenaline is going to help you focus and succeed. Okay, but it's when it becomes chronic that it's an issue, and we need to be able to. And that's where coping strategies become important, and we're going to talk about that next. Anyway, this here we'll look at the health belief model, and it links to Bandura's social cognitive theory. So if you've already studied that, hopefully you can remember the 3 key claims of Bandura's social cognitive theory. One is observational learning, or social learning. One is triadic reciprocal causation, and the third is self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy is what we're looking at here today. The biopsychosocial model is really another way of looking at triadic reciprocal causation. Okay, so they're the 3 key claims of Bandura's theory, renamed in the 80s from social learning theory in the 60s, and we're looking at self-efficacy. So just a little bit of context first, though. All right, health problems have been on the rise, right? So from the 1950s, from this, I would argue, I think it's because of the industrialized model and the ideas from the Industrial Revolution that were applied to textiles and materials like iron and steel have been applied to the food industry. And so we've had this massive increase of processed foods, of high-calorie foods that at one point were really hard to obtain, high in calories and fat and sugar and salt, those delicious things that we've evolved to crave, now are really, really available. And so we have this massive increase in obesity and heart disease and health problems. So that's why in the 1950s and 60s, the health belief model was proposed. This model tries to explain the likelihood of someone changing their behavior to become healthier. If ever you're trying to understand a model or theory in psychology, first ask the question, okay, what is this theory trying to explain? And then all the key terms and ideas will make sense if you try to use those to answer that question. A lot of students struggle with schema theory, social identity theory, social cognitive theory, the working memory model, because they remember all the terminology, but they can't jumble it together because they're not sure what the hell they're doing. So remember, what is it trying to explain? The likelihood of someone changing their behavior to become healthier. So American social scientists in the 50s developed this model. The fundamental claim of the health belief model is that a person's belief in their personal threat of an illness and their belief in the effectiveness of recommendations to improve health will predict the likelihood the person will follow the recommendations. How many people do you know are in bad health and have been told you need to do something about this to get healthier or you're going to die soon, and they just ignore it and they keep behaving the way they're going to behave? This is a question that these social scientists asked in the 50s. Why, when we have these treatments available and we have these things like vaccinations that were coming popular at the time, we have these recommendations, why aren't people changing their behavior to get healthier? It's quite confusing. Okay, let's look at it in terms of stress. If someone thinks chronic stress isn't a problem and that following their doctor's advice won't do anything, right? So I don't agree with the recommendation, I don't think it's a problem, then they're not going to change their behavior. So one way, So there are 6 key factors of the health belief model. So in order to know this model, you need to remember these 6. I'll give you some extra exam advice at the end of this video as well. All right, but those 6 factors are: Remember, these all contribute to the likelihood someone will change their behavior. Perceived susceptibility to an illness. If you don't think it's going to bother you, it's going to affect you, you're not going to change your behavior. Perceived severity. Is it that damaging? I'm a little bit overweight. Is that a bad thing? If I don't think so, I'm not going to try to lose weight. Perceived benefits. Is it actually really going to help? Is it going to make a difference? Perceived barriers, like how many obstacles do I have in the way? Okay, so if we think about this for stress, do I have access to, say, a mindfulness app? Is it easy for me to actually try to find extra resources to try to cope with stress? Okay. A cue to action. Is there some sort of motivating trigger? So for a lot of people, something major like a heart attack or a stroke or getting burnt out or getting distressed or having major burnout at work is a trigger that goes, right, I need something. I need to change something. And finally, and this is the one we're going to focus on, is self-efficacy. Does someone have a belief in their ability to do something, right? Do they think they can, do they actually believe that their change behavior they can do it, basically? And this self-efficacy was added later in the 1980s, in large part thanks to Bandura and his ideas. So self-efficacy is an individual's belief in his or her own ability. I should have said that. Oh, actually, it's a quote, so I shouldn't have said anything. It's a belief in his or her own ability to organize and implement action to produce the desired achievements and results. What does that mean? Your belief in your ability to do something. So academic self-efficacy. Do you believe that you have the potential and the willpower and the brain power to score high grades? If you do, you're likely to score higher grades. Health self-efficacy. Do you believe that you have all the resources, materials, willpower, factors necessary to improve your health? Okay, that's it. So, belief in the ability to take care of their health. Okay, all right. So if you have higher health self-efficacy, of course, it's probably going to correlate to better health. Now, one way you can do this, and this is an activity I've suggested in the lesson plan for this teacher support pack, link in the description, is to do the great mask debate, where you can go, some people are like, all right, let's wear masks. Other people don't wear masks. The health belief model could actually be applied to a lot of debates around COVID. So that could make for an interesting discussion, debate, and also an interesting way to learn about the health belief model. Now, self-efficacy, you can find a link. This is also on the slides in the lesson plan, but you can measure your self-efficacy. There's loads of different questionnaires online that you can do. Okay, so let's look at a key study that links self-efficacy and academic stress. We're going to focus on this one in particular. I believe I searched for health self-efficacy, but it was a little bit harder to come up with studies. Most of the modern research on this just embeds self-efficacy with like 8 other factors. So finding pure correlational studies that are very simple and straightforward is kind of tricky, and that's what I want to do. And I don't feel like I'm cherry picking the data, just so you know, because these correlations are really well established in the literature. All right, so key question here was, does emotional self-efficacy correlate with academic stress? So, and again, I wanted to use high school students for this study as well. That's also why I chose it. So, Turkish high school students. Now, they use questionnaires to measure their emotional self-efficacy and academic stress. Remember, correlational studies always have 2 covariables, right? And they want to gather data on both of those things and then do the calculations to see how strongly they are connected or if they're connected at all. Emotional self-efficacy is the belief in one's ability to regulate their own emotions. Emotion regulation is really important with stress. If you can manage your emotions, you're going to have lower levels of stress. All right, so what do the results say? A negative correlation between emotional self-efficacy and academic stress. All right, what does that mean? Well, lower emotional self-efficacy, if they had less of a belief in their ability to manage their emotions, they're going to have higher academic stress. A stronger belief, right? These Turkish high school students, if they had a stronger belief in their ability to manage their emotions, they would have lower academic stress. I'm going to toot my own horn. I hope IB Psychology teenagers watching this appreciate how hard it was for me to find studies on teenagers that would hopefully you'd be able to relate to and be a little bit more interesting, as opposed to looking at studies on elderly populations or anything like that. Anyway, sorry. Okay, I won't toot my own horn anymore. But I worked hard to find these studies. Right. Further analysis suggested a directional effect. So the problem with correlational studies, right, is we say, okay, yeah, this is correlation. Correlation doesn't mean causation. Is it the self-efficacy influencing the academic stress? Or maybe academic stress is influencing the emotional self-efficacy? All right. And we can do further regression analyses on the data to actually find predictional effects. So this one suggested that it was emotional self-efficacy that predicted the lower levels of academic stress. So the direction does work in that the relationship does work in that direction in this particular study. So this is supporting the health belief model because it shows one of the 6 pillars of HBM, self-efficacy. Now, you could also use this study for an essay on social cognitive theory, because you can look at the study supports one of the key aspects, that self-efficacy, key claim of social cognitive theory, is linked with behavior as well. Now, hopefully you can remember those 6 pillars of the health belief model. Can you remember them? Perceived susceptibility, perceived vulnerability, perceived severity, cue to action, self-efficacy, all of those 6. I've even forgot a couple off the top of my head. All right, now let's have a look at the exam. So this is what the health psychology option looks like. Remember, you're going to have one question from each of these 3 topics: determinants, problems, promoting. I recommend becoming an expert in the problems, but if you become an expert in the problems, you can also study these factors up here. Now, I've just noticed that actually health promotion, the health belief model, health beliefs, I'm sorry, okay. So the health belief model comes under health beliefs, okay? So you can use the health belief model to answer that particular topic here. Okay, all right. So in terms of the health belief model, if you were talking about health beliefs, that question comes up in the exam, you can talk about the 6 pillars and the focus on self-efficacy for the studies, Aslan, that we just talked about. And there's another study coming up which looks at problem versus emotion focused coping and self-efficacy. So you can use that one as well. Okay. Right. This all comes in the IB Health Psychology Stress Unit, which you can just, for one simple click of a button, get everything you need: audio book, the e-book for the revision guide and the student's guide. Listen along to the audio book. You have the flashcards, example essays, everything there, along with the blog, along with the links. Thank you. Health belief model, I think I included it because it goes well with social cognitive theory. So there's an overlap there for paper 1. And also it gives you a lot to write about for health beliefs. Otherwise, it can be a little bit tricky. So remember, I like to teach psychology through what, how, why, but. Remember that. What is the health belief model? How am I going to explain stress? But what are the limitations? All right, good luck. Coming up next, we have coping strategies. We're going to get into things like approach coping, avoidance coping, sleep, diet, exercise, all that fascinating stuff. That's coming up next.